I've had a lot of thoughts on my mind lately and a more difficult time than normal organizing them.
It's almost like there's a lot happening in the world.
So I wasn't really sure what to do this week on this channel because I have so many scripts and none of them felt right at the moment, etc. But I just got back from the Sewing and Stitchery Expo in Seattle, which reminded me that last year when I went to H&H, which is like a fiber and fabric trade show in Chicago, I got this. 'Tis a needle felting kit by The Felted Dog, not sponsored or anything. I bought it from their stand there, and I haven't gotten around to making it yet, so like, let's do that today. 'Tis a happy little narwhal. Also, y'all, I just have to show you this mug because I got it at a store in Seattle from like a local artist, and isn't it the coolest thing ever? Look at how the handle works. It's just this like giant dip in the clay that you hold it by. You can see the dip inside. It's full, so I'm not gonna show you. But like, how clever is that? And it's also a beautiful collection of colors. My favorite three together, blue, purple, and green. Ignore the puzzle. It's one of the Yetch Studio Edge Piece puzzles. Very cute, very fun. So I appreciated that this one says everything you need is in the box, so I don't have to go out and get any other supply in order to try needle felting for the first time. And also, I assume that if I want to try it again, I will only have to get more felt. In theory. Also, y'all, we finally changed the light bulbs in the fixture above me because they were like the kind that has like the grayed out glass, and they were really low lumens, I think it's called. But the only ones that we had on hand are super bright, though I feel like in the camera it's looking great. Over here I'm like, yay, light! All right, so we have some general tips and tricks, and then we have the instructions for the narwhal, some templates, needles, our felt colors. That's a lot of felt. How big is this gonna be? I feel like it's only gonna be like palm of your hand thing, but I have no concept of any of this. I've never done it before. I have no concept of how much felt it takes to make a certain size. Needle felting is always like magic to me. I haven't done it, but of course I've watched many other people do it. I get the general concept. I even get the specific concept. I get it. Because there's all the different types of felting, and it's all about those fibers just twisting around each other and interlocking so tightly that they can't be pulled apart. I get that. But like watching somebody just like stab something and then it turns into a cute little animal, it's freaking magical. And then we have a little pillow to do the stabbing on. Be careful, the needle is sharp. Good to know. Roving, that's what this is called, which just makes me think of it like floating across the hills. Maybe that's why it's called that, because like the little tufts come out of sheep and just kind of like rove across the hills. I might be entirely making that up. Okay, so you're really just starting by making a ball, which does seem like a good place to start. I think that's what Maria von Trapp would say about it. I'm doing it like dough. I don't know if that's helpful or right or good. Begin felting by gently stabbing the surface vertically. Okay. Y'all know I'm gonna end up stabbing myself at some point. It's pretty cool how immediately stuff happens. Like I had lumps. This was open on one side and it only took a few stabs for it to close itself. Huh. You can also kind of feel the difference between a stab that only catches a few fibers and a stab that catches a lot of them. I don't think I've necessarily been doing this evenly on all sides though. Difficult to say. The ball is shrinking though. You can kind of tell that this is the side that I, clumped everything together on versus this is the side that was nice and smooth. So I'm trying to kind of hit this side more and get like the line right here to go away. But we are definitely covering one of these sides up with like a stomach. So maybe I'll just cover that side up. Is that 2 inches? That seems bigger than 2 inches. Yo, it's like exactly 2 inches.
I'm so good.
Also, how do we like the sound of this? I'm quite enjoying it. This was not in the instructions, but it just feels right. Because again, this feels like working with dough. Ta-da! That's a pretty good ball, right? That's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah. My hand-eye coordination is great. I'm not gonna necessarily show you this entire process because it is somebody else's kit, or at least I'm not gonna like show you up close and walk you through it. But I will attempt to talk some about what's been muddling up my brain lately, aside from the obvious, which is gestures broadly to the world. I am a person who wants to do everything. Obviously not literally everything, but it feels okay to say everything because if I were to sit down and try to make a list, which I have done multiple times in my life, of everything that I want to do and try and experience, the list would be never ending. Like I've never actually succeeded in fully writing down that list. There's just so much, and I am constantly adding more things to that list, which never, ever, ever feels finished. That feels bigger than it's supposed to be, but oh well. So what this generally means for me is that, you know, every once in a while, anywhere from like probably 1 to 6 times a year, depending on circumstances, I just go through a little period where I feel extremely overwhelmed, which makes it difficult to focus, and also kind of leads to just like, I wouldn't call it depression. I don't think it even gets close to depression, and that would be rude to people who have actual depression to call it that. But it leads to very negative thoughts because we go from this high of like, there's so many things I'm excited about and interested in and want to do, to this low of, oh my God, I'll never be able to achieve all of them. And the space in between is like a stressed feeling of, I have no idea what to focus on. And everything that I am doing feels like it's not the thing that I should be doing because there's so many other things that I could be doing. I used to kind of assume that everybody was like this, but I've learned since then that actually no, not everyone in the world has the desire to do everything. It must be so peaceful for those who don't. And to be clear, this is something that I'm experiencing literally all the time. Like there's never a point where I'm not overwhelmed by everything that I want to do. Somewhere in the back of my brain, there are just points where it comes way, way forward to the front of my brain and starts, you know, affecting my daily mood. And we're in one of those points right now. I've gotten, you know, better generally. I don't know if it would be better. I've been like this for as long as I can remember. So, you know, I've gotten experience at recognizing this, knowing what it's about, not stressing out that I'm feeling it, but just accepting that this is a thing that I experience and that I will be able to walk myself through it. You know, like you can add a whole extra level of stress and anxiety and negative thoughts, a downward spiral, whatever, on top of what's originally the problem, you know, if you don't recognize what the original problem is, if that makes sense. So we're past that now. I pretty quickly can go like, oh, yeah, we're having one of those moments. Oh, is the happy little narwhal a reference to Bob Ross? Bob Ross? It might not be, but I feel like if you say happy little anything, it's a reference to him. Okay, I think that's basically what I was supposed to do. I stabbed around the whole sides and got the little outline of the tail. Oh, I've stabbed it into this pillow real hard. Is this supposed to happen? It's so in this pillow. Is this a problem that people have? Oh God. I think maybe you should move stuff every once in a while. Well, this is how the flat felting thing works. When you like felt onto an article of clothing or something. I'm getting a great little example of that. But my tail, let's try that again. Anyway, so I very much know what set it off this time. It's quite obvious. There was a whole series of stuff. First of all, I'm starting to teach classes, which is a whole new pursuit. I'm teaching over at Remainders, and that's awesome and everything. This is not like, none of these things set it off by themselves, but it's a stack. Let me give you the stack. So teaching is a thing I'm interested in. It's a thing I'm now doing. It's a thing that will take time in my schedule. Then there was the conference, the expo, which just reminded me by attending of my dream conference, which is like a gathering of people to celebrate creativity and making. I've already put a lot of thought into this, and I've talked about it before. Like, I'd love it if somebody else did this or if it just already existed. But from my research, nothing that exists is exactly what I'm imagining in my head. But then, while in Seattle, I also signed up for don't lose a needle. I also signed up for a writing workshop. It was like a one-day thing on this beautiful reserve where just, a bunch of people who are writers, got together and wrote. And this is the first time that I've ever done something like that. Writing is something I've been doing since I was 8 years old, and it's something that I kind of consistently refuse to give specific focus to, especially in particularly fiction writing. I have been able to utilize nonfiction writing on this channel and on my other channel and stuff like that. But like when it comes to the fictional writing that I do, I just keep being like, I find it very hard to allow myself to prioritize that, to dedicate time to that and to really pursue it, which like, one, you're not gonna get better if you're not dedicating time to it, and two, you're never gonna freaking finish anything if you don't dedicate time to it. And it was just kind of by coincidence that this happened, because when I travel to a new city, I like to look up like workshops of some kind, and I'm usually kind of focusing on crafty workshops. So I was looking for like a class, a crafting, making something that I could take, and it just so happened that the same place that offered some of those also offered these writing workshops, and that was the thing that fell within the time frame of me being there. And it was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's frickin' do the thing. Let's like go to a writing workshop and dedicate some time to it. And it was really beautiful. Like the landscape around us was gorgeous. We were in like this Japanese tea house. It was a rather decently large group of people there. And it was really just about sitting down and focusing on writing. They were like, oh, feel free to walk around the grounds and everything. And then in the middle, we like paused for lunch and we had a little meeting and we talked about some stuff that is relevant to writers. But the rest of the time, it was just sit and write. And I was thinking ahead of time, I was like, well, this like reserve thing that we're on is gorgeous. I'm definitely going to want to walk around. Like, who knows if I'll get much writing done. I will allow myself to just walk around the grounds and enjoy this. Y'all, I ended up not walking around the grounds at all. I wrote the whole time because surprise, surprise, if I dedicate a space of time to writing, especially considering I also paid money to dedicate that a space of time, I just wrote. I sat down and I wrote. And it's like, haha, you've been telling yourself your whole life that like, I can't make myself write on a schedule. I need to just do it when inspiration strikes. That just doesn't work for me. Yes, it frickin' does. Like actually, scheduling and discipline and like requiring myself to do a thing in a certain time frame is one of my skills in general. And yes, I proved to myself with this one-day writing workshop that it absolutely applies to writing just as much as it applies to anything else. So I can't keep pretending to myself that the reason I haven't committed to writing and actually finishing something is that, I can't do it on a schedule and I need to be inspired and everything. I just proved to myself that that is not true, and that if I dedicated time to writing like it's a job, then I would freaking do it. So that's the third thing now that's piling in on my brain. And then on top of those, I did when I'm at conferences like this, like the expo, one, I walk around, there's always a lot of quilting stuff. And I'm not really personally interested in quilting until I look at really cool art quilts. And then my brain is like, oh my God, look how incredible that is. You could do that. You maybe should do that. My glasses are dirty. What is on these? And then, there was stitching, there was embroidery. I came away from there with 2 new embroidery projects, like hardcore, on my to-do list. And then I've actually come up with 3 more embroidery projects since I got home. Ow. That was the first time I stabbed myself. And I wasn't even doing the stabbing, I was just moving around. So we're seeing how stuff is piling up, right? And then I went to a meetup, like a maker's meetup, a few days after getting home from Seattle. And just in the course of a conversation that I was having with somebody, lovely conversation, lovely person, it was all good. But just in the course of this conversation, I was reminded of a bunch of stuff that's been on my I've always wanted to do it list. Stuff like getting a pilot's license or a scuba diving license, I should say, and not or. I really wanted to get a skydiving license for a while, and I should really just say I still want to get a skydiving license. I was reminded that rock climbing is something that I've always wanted to take up. And then that reminded me that, oh yeah, I really wanted to go back to taking ballet classes again, just for the fun of it. And that reminded me of how much I miss doing aerial arts and pole dancing. And then I'm back home and I'm, trying to come up with stuff for dinner, and I'm reminded that I really want to cook more and cook better and dedicate time to improving my cooking and baking skills. And let me add here that I absolutely realize that I'm preaching to the choir right now. I recognize that there are people in this world who don't have a bazillion interests. I have learned that, but I also know that probably the majority of the people who are in my typical audience relate to this on some level, have a bunch of interests, have a lot of things that they'd like to do with their life, and never enough time to do all of them. So this is not at all me being oh no, I have this terrible problem. To state the obvious, because I do feel like I have to state the obvious, there's the added layer on this right now that I feel very guilty that I'm even feeling this way. What a reflection of my privilege that I can currently be in a spiral about all of the wonderful things I want to do and try in my life, when there are currently people in the world just struggling to survive. So yes, I recognize that. But I also recognize that telling yourself, hey, those emotions that you're having are a giant reflection of your privilege, doesn't actually stop you from having those emotions. You still gotta work through them. There's no magical poof make them go away. This is looking pretty tail-shaped, if I do say so myself. I think I ended up a little bit, again with the needle. I think I ended up a little bigger. Ooh, I'm a lot longer than the stencil was. Whoops. I think it's okay. It's also a little thin in the middle, so I think I need to add more there. This really is magic. Okay, I think I'm satisfied with the tail. Coffee refill time.
12 seconds later.
Okay, I got the tail attached. I'm at the point where it's do I add more? Is this the proper shape? I really don't know, but I think I just need to be yeah, it's fine. So yeah, it's fine. You can kind of just keep playing with this forever, which is fun. In pottery, you kind of have to just stop because the more you touch it, the more likely you are to ruin it. This is the opposite from what I'm noticing here, at least. I can kind of just keep stabbing at this endlessly and adding little bits here and there and stuff, and it just gets better, so far at least. But yeah, there are just so many things that I feel right now at this exact moment, I could drop everything else and devote the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 3 years to this one thing. Like, that's my level of interest in it. I would love to just drop everything else and focus on my embroidery projects for the next however long. I would love it in theory, in my head. In reality, I wouldn't love it because I have so many other things that I'm interested in, you know? Like, I can never focus on just one thing for very long, and it's not usually because I'm not enjoying that thing anymore or I'm bored of it or something. Not usually, because these are all things that I'm interested in. Like, that used to happen with regular jobs. After 6 months of working any job, I was bored out of my brain. But those were not jobs that I was interested in. They were jobs I had to do to survive. So I don't think that same thing applies or happens when it comes to this very long list of stuff that I am actually specifically interested in. It's like, yes, I could, in theory, do this for years and years to come and love it. It's just that all of the other things that I also want to do and I'm so fascinated by and I really want to try are there, just surrounding me and glaring down at me. Like, when are you going to try all of us? So yeah, it's like, in theory, it would be so great to just stop doing everything else and focus on embroidery for, let's say, the next 6 months. But also, in theory, it would be great to drop everything else and focus on writing for the next 6 months. Maybe I would actually finish one of the many ideas that I have started. But also, I'm so tempted to drop everything and focus on cooking and baking for the next 6 months. Or how about we drop everything else and focus on gardening? Oh, I'm so in the mood to garden right now. Part of me is like, let's just spend the next 6 months outside in the yard planting stuff and having a grand old time. Wouldn't that be lovely? And yes, it would. It would be so lovely. That's a pretty small tummy. I think I can go bigger. Except that then, the whole time I would be thinking, what about all those other things? Like, I do not understand the concept of contentment in this area. Like, I think there's different ways you can feel content. But I don't know that I will ever really feel content with, like, what I'm doing or what I have done so far or what I am currently focusing on. And again, it's not that thing of like, I'm not content because this isn't something I like, or this, I guess it is kind of that it isn't enough, because it isn't enough when there's all of these other things. Like, y'all, I would love to make a TV show, literally have the name and everything. It's called Endangered Crafts. Maybe that's not a super good name, but I feel like it's descriptive. I want to do a TV show where I travel around, because there are so many craft styles, not crafts, like kid crafts, craft, like artisan craft styles that are endangered. Like, England literally has a list, I have looked at it before, of endangered crafts. I don't know if America has one or if any other countries have one. They literally have a list of like, there are only 10 people in the world who still know how to do this craft. Or sometimes there are like only 2 people left in the world who are actual masters of this craft and know everything about it. They are endangered. These people will die and that craft will disappear if nobody else learns about it. And I would just love to do a TV show where I travel around and each episode focuses on one of these crafts and meets with one of the last remaining masters of this craft to just bring attention to each one, to show the process a little bit, to give a demonstration, to, you know, maybe try it out personally if I can, to give some experience of like how difficult it is, and, you know, to raise awareness about these crafts that are dying. I have such an interest in craft in general, and so it does make me really, really sad that crafts are dying out, in the same way that it probably makes linguists sad that there are languages that have died, and, you know, biologists sad that there are animals that are extinct. I'm sad about both of those things too. I'm sad about the animals and the languages as well as the crafts. I'm more focused on crafts, I guess. But like, wouldn't that be a cool show? I don't think anyone in, you know, popular entertainment would ever greenlight a show like that, because they'd be like, what the crap, where's the audience for that? And I'm like, here's the audience, it's just not as big as you want it to be. If you're able to bring attention to these dying crafts in that way, then people may see that and go like, oh, that's a thing I want to do. I just didn't even know it was an option. And then you may get people who start studying those things and keep it from dying. Like, you could offer resources with every single episode of like, hey, if this specific craft interests you, here's where you can find classes on it, or here's the remaining masters who are willing to teach it, or like, here's anything you can do to possibly pursue that craft yourself. And I guarantee that you'd get people watching it who would end up pursuing that craft. If there's any producers out there, hit me up. But also, I would love to do a crafting competition show, kind of like Making It, which was such a good show and like did not last long enough. I'm assuming it's not on anymore. I haven't heard anything about it in years now. But I've always wanted to do a crafting competition that is very different than all normal competitions, where every contestant specializes in a different craft. And each episode, each stage of the competition, is one of those contestants having to teach their craft to the other contestants. And all of the other contestants have to make something within that craft. And the main person who knows it doesn't get to compete that week. Also, nobody ever gets deleted. They're there for the entire competition, which is why this would, again, never get picked up. People would be like, what the crap? That's not how competition shows work. But I would have nobody ever get deleted. Everyone would just get graded. And they would get graded on a variety of things, both by judges and by their fellow contestants. And it would all balance out. I've like done the math. But like, they'd get graded not only on the projects they make every week, and I think the very first week, everybody would make a project in their own craft to like establish a baseline and get graded on their own work, their own specialty. But then you would be graded by the other contestants on how well you were able to teach your craft. And you would also be graded by the judges and by the person who taught on how well your pieces in the other forms of crafting came out, you know? So then like, everyone would be there the whole time. Everyone would try all of the other forms of crafting. And at the end of the show, there would be winners just based on everybody's grade rather than on people getting eliminated each week. I feel like I get so excited every time I start actually talking about like these things that I don't usually tell anybody about. They're just always like floating around in the back of my head or like written down on some ideas lists. But like, these are things that I would love to do. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make that happen. So if I really wanted to pursue like an actual like TV show like this, even if we did it still on YouTube, but we're talking like an actual production, if I really wanted to pursue that, that would take over my life, because we're now talking about like getting producers on board and hiring a team and getting funding and all of this stuff. Like, that would have to become my entire focus, in the same way that if I really want to pursue creating a creativity con of some kind, that's going to have to become a major focus. That is going to take over a huge portion of my life, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And I'm not at all like, oh my God, I have to do it all myself, and so like, therefore it will take all this time. No, like, absolutely, I recognize that all of these things would require help. But even with help, like, if I'm the one who's coming in with the idea, then there's a huge amount of time and effort and focus required to pursue those things. So yeah, there's just like all these different levels of like, okay, here's a bunch of craft styles I want to try, a bunch of embroidery projects that I want to do, a bunch of sewing projects that I want to do, a bunch of other stuff. There's so much other stuff I want to do. And those end up being kind of the easiest thing to focus on, because ultimately what I can focus on is my job. YouTube, making videos. I get to make different things in every video. So again, huge amount of privilege there. Like, most people are trying to balance all of these random desires with having like 1, 2, or even 3 jobs to sustain life and pay bills. And I'm incredibly lucky that I get to do YouTube, at least for now, and I get to at least pursue various stuff for my job. Like right now, I'm trying needle felting for the first time, and I get to call it my job, even though this is going on the second channel, which is more of a hobby. It's kind of not really part of my job as much as the main channel is. But you know, like, that's a huge privilege that I get to do that. But at the same time, I also recognize that if that's what I continue to focus on, if I continue to say, well, I'm overwhelmed by all of these ideas, and so I'm going to focus on the one that kind of has the most variety, which is my job, YouTube, video making. That's kind of putting all of my eggs in one basket. And the scary thing there is it's not a basket I'm holding. Someone else is holding the basket with all of my eggs in it. And you know, that's not necessarily the smartest idea. So like, that's part of a little bit of panic that happens in my brain sometimes, is like, you need to be diversifying your stuff in general. And it's not even me being like, oh my God, I have to force that, and so I have to come up with ideas. No, like, there's things I want to do to diversify. It's just, how much time do I devote to those things, and how does that affect the thing that currently pays my bills and currently feels like my full-time job? It is my full-time job. But like, how much time do you take away from that to try to focus on one of the other things that are a risk, that you don't currently know like how they're going to turn out, or if they will be successful on any level? And also, I really, really enjoy video making. I like this job. It's the best job I've ever had in my life. So if I want to, you know, pursue writing, or if I want to pursue like TV production kind of video making, or if I want to pursue creating a con event of some kind, those kind of all 3 would become the main thing. And I would either need to completely stop with the YouTube video making, or I would need to at least like scale it way back and kind of put it on the back burner. And so there's a part of me that's like, well, I don't really want to do that. I like doing YouTube. I like doing all these small projects. I'm at least able to do a bunch of small projects and try a bunch of things. So like, how freaking scary is it to say I'm going to sacrifice the variety that I get to do right now, that I'm so privileged to get to do as my job, in pursuit of one of these bigger ideas that I have and that I'm interested in? I don't know. I get very, very inspired by the Green brothers, because between the two of them, they have just done so much and such a variety of things. That's the insane thing to me. It's such a wide variety. And like, the whole time, they have also managed to upkeep essentially being YouTubers. And I get really inspired by that, and I want to continue to be inspired by that and not like depressed by that. You know, like, sometimes inspiration can like immediately turn to you being like, oh, I can never do that. How on earth did they manage it? That's so much. That's like a really big goal to aim for. And like, I have to recognize that there's a lot more that goes into the making of a crafting video or a making video, where you have to make a thing in the video than in a video where you just talk about your thoughts, which is why I love this channel, because I love that I can just sit down and talk about my thoughts. Anyway, all of that to say, that's kind of one of my major inspiration points, is like, they've managed to do it, so it's possible. It's freaking possible, somehow. I don't really know how, but it's possible. Hank called himself a science communicator, or I think that's what he just calls himself in general right now, but the first time I heard him use that term, I was like, that's what I frickin' want to be, but replace the word science with craft, I guess, Or with creativity, I want to be a creativity communicator, which isn't a thing, but I want it to be a thing and I want it to be me. I think I'm okay with that as the tummy. It feels like theirs is a little bit bigger, but I think that's enough. Does it need to come more up in the front? No, I think it's fine. What it ultimately comes down to, no, it doesn't really ultimately come down to this, but this is a thing. Making videos on YouTube, trying various crafts, and doing various things is comfortable, because it's what I've been doing for 5 years now, which is insane. I can't believe it's been that long. It's comfortable, but it's also, again, a platform over which I have no control. So how long do I keep putting my eggs all in that basket before I find another basket, one that I can maybe hold instead of somebody else holding it? I'm overusing the basket metaphor. But this is kind of what I'm trying to do. Like, this is the reason that I started with pursuing teaching. It is at least something that is different. It is a completely outside of YouTube source of connecting with people. Yes, it's a source of income. It's not really a big one right now, but like, it is a potential source of income, and it's a source of me continuing to have to learn and me getting to share. I mean, let's be real. The reason I make videos is that I love to share. So it's a different source of being able to share. And this is why I wanted to pursue it this year, is because this is what I want to start doing, is looking for different sources. At the same time, while I think I will enjoy teaching, it's not super duper. Super duper? I don't think I've said super duper in ages. Or have I? I don't know, that just struck me as like such a super duper. Anyway, I don't think teaching is my main interest. I don't think it ever has been. I like to share, not necessarily to teach, which is the basis of my YouTube channel. You know, I'm sharing, not teaching. I'm sharing my process of learning. There is definitely need for people who want to teach, but I think that there is also desire for watching people learn and for the inspiration that comes with that, and for people just sharing their interest in something. I find it entertaining when I watch other people do it. Anyway, all that to say that, like, I don't want to start throwing all of my eggs in the basket of teaching, because I don't feel qualified to teach a lot of stuff. I don't feel qualified to teach like 95% of what I've done on my channel. I kind of only feel qualified to teach embroidery because I've done that for so long. I actually feel like I can offer something worth paying for. Don't get me started on the whole like, when people pay for something, how that changes everything in my brain. That's a whole other discussion. Is that a fin shape? That looks like a fin shape. The right size too, woohoo. But yeah, I do think that I will enjoy teaching, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited about where it might go from there, and the opportunities to maybe do online workshops or do workshops at existing cons, expos, events, etc. But like, that's definitely not the standout thing in my brain of like, this is the thing that I want to pursue big time. Like, video making is my favorite thing right now. It is the thing that I want to pursue the most, pursue the hardest. It's just not the only thing. It's not. Nothing is ever the only thing with me. So, this is the confusing, overwhelm place that my brain has been recently. Do I start pursuing a pilot's license just because that's something I've always wanted to do? Or do I go find a rock climbing gym? Classes? Can I take classes in rock climbing? Because I feel like I need them. I've tried it once and I was bad. Or do I look for ballet classes? Or do I get back into pole? Or do I want to start doing like a longer ceramic class? I loved pottery when I tried it. And that's another thing on my list, because like, yes, you can do clay work and stuff at home, ceramic work, I guess. But, you know, I would love to actually like make stuff that needs to be kiln fired, throw stuff on a wheel. So it would be great to take like a longer extended course in pottery and start exploring my skills there.
But all of this is both time and money.
Again, preaching to the choir. I know you guys. I know it's even worse for people who don't get to do this as their job. I recognize that. A part of me wants decisions in this area to be made for me, not necessarily like, do I take rock climbing or ballet or pottery classes? But like when it comes to the big stuff, like, do I pursue a con or do I try to make a TV show or all of those kind of things? I'm always like, can somebody just like shoot me an email and be like, yo, we want to do this, so do it. And then I'll be like, yeah, and then we'll do that. Wouldn't that be grand? Like, I'm scared of being the instigator. But also, if we want to go back to the Green Brothers and the inspiration they are, they're kind of instigators, especially Hank. He's an instigator. He starts stuff. He goes for stuff. He pursues stuff. And I think that's what I've got to kind of accept in my head, is that if you want something to happen, you can't just sit around writing about it in very long and detailed documents that you never ever show anybody. You gotta frickin' do something about it. Although here, we go back around to my original problem. Which thing do I focus on? Because what if it's the wrong thing and the other thing would have been more fun or cooler or more successful? Or what if you focus on this one thing and then you hate it? This is a bit morbid, but I think some people would assume that a person like me really fears death because they have all these things they want to do and death is a stopper on that. No, actually. I kind of think of death as a sweet relief from all of this. Not that I at all desire it, but like, I don't think I really fear it in this way, because it's not so much that like I have to get all of this done. It's more that I have to fill the time that I have to the best possible ability that I have, you know? So if I died tomorrow and I never got to do any of this, it would be like, okay, hard stop. But as long as I am alive and on this earth and able to do crap, I want to do the most crap possible. I want to do it all, everything. We have one fin. Let me make another one. Let me stop talking for a minute and focus on this narwhal. Although, thank you for listening. This is really helping me work through all the thoughts that I've been having trouble working through.
Later.
Y'all, he's so happy. It's so cute. I freaking love that. What a perfect first experience with needle felting. I do think that I probably didn't make my original ball quite as dense as it should have been, because when I went to add the spots, they kind of just like sunk straight in. And then I was doing like a stab and lift thing with the needle to push them back outward, and I broke a needle. But that's okay. First try. I do think it was helpful trying it for the first time with instructions, not necessarily a kit, but just something to tell me what to do, because I would not have thought to like do the flat pieces by outlining the edges and then folding things in and then attaching it to the ball. So yeah, like structurally, the instructions on how to build something up into an actual animal shape was very helpful. What fun! Now I have officially tried needle felting, and I quite liked it. It is nice to just sit there stabbing. I think the whole thing was easier and more intuitive than I expected it to be. Again, you can just kind of keep going and keep adjusting things, so there's no like, I've ruined it. I don't think you can. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad that I paused in everything else and just focused on that for a little bit. And thank you for joining me for that and for chats. It was very helpful to just talk through all the things that have been on my brain. And I do think it's something that so many of us struggle with. So many of us are just really, really interested in a lot of things, and we have such a thirst for knowledge and for life and for trying stuff, and that is forever going to be kind of punched in the face by things like time and money and priorities, and yeah, it's not just me. It's definitely not just me. So, thanks for listening. See you next time.
The puppy's mad that I trapped him outside.
I'm coming for you. You have access to Daddy right now, you know. How dare. Come in, silly butt.